Welcome back. All right, so I got to asking myself a question today. Is the Canucks roster they currently have the best roster they've ever had? And it's always an interesting question to ask because you can have a team that has a lot of stars on it, big names, may not perform very well. Then you might get a team of no names who end up performing very well, bonding and going all the way to a final, like, say, for instance, the 1996 Florida Panthers. Uh, and there are other examples of teams that have flamed out with a lot of star players, and of course, teams that have got that lunch pail attitude that ends up getting them somewhere in the playoffs. But I wanted to talk about the most memorable teams for me is the years that I felt like, you know what, this might be the year. And so I'm starting with 91, 92, and I've talked before about how I felt like this was the best the Canucks ever looked. Just from start to finish of the season. In the playoffs, they ended up losing in the second round against the Oilers in 6 games, but I was so optimistic about the future. So Linden led the team in scoring that year. 80 games, 31 goals, 44 assists, 75 points. Linden was a very good player at his peak. Ronning, 80 games, 24 goals, 47 assists, 71 points. I have so many Ronning jerseys. People know how I feel about Cliff Ronning, one of my favorite players ever. Larionov, 72 games, 21 goals, 44 assists, 65 points. He was a Hall of Famer they never replaced when he ended up leaving the team. He didn't want another transfer payment going back to his former country, so he was in North America. He wanted to make sure that there wasn't any need to send any money home, and so he ended up leaving the Canucks, sadly, and I don't think they ever replaced him. They tried. Bure, 65 games, 34 goals, 26 assists, 60 points. That's his rookie year. And Bure joined during the season. That's why he only played 65 games. And when he joined the team, they were already playing well. And then they added one of the best goal scorers in the game. So that made them even better. Greg Adams, 76 games, 30 goals, 27 assists, 57 points. I have to mention Greg Adams because I'm talking about the 90s Canucks. And he was one of the best 30 goal scorers that people didn't really talk about. So nothing but love for what Adams was able to do while he was here. Then you've got Jeff Courtnall, 70 games, 23 goals, 34 assists for 57 points. And of course, Kirk McLean. He had 38 wins that year to go with 17 losses and 9 ties and a 901 save percentage. Remembering that in 1992, a save percentage above 900, pretty good. Around the same as a save percentage over 910 or 915 now in the NHL. So this was a team that finished with 96 points. They were first in the division. And it was after well over 10 years of the team just not being very good at all. 93 94 has to be mentioned when we talk about this because this was the team that went all the way to the Stanley Cup final and lost against the New York Rangers. So it was a 7-game series against the Rangers. The Rangers had a 3-1 series lead. They lose game 5 at home. The Canucks hold serve at home in game 6. And then game 7, it was pretty obvious pretty early on that the Rangers were going to end up winning it. But still, it was fun. It was a fun ride while it lasted. Bure ended up leading them in scoring that year. He had 60 goals in 76 games, 47 assists for 107 points. Bure in his prime. Courtnall, 82 games, 26 goals, 44 assists, 70 points. Ronning, still there. 76 games, 25 goals, 43 assists, 68 points. So Cliff Ronning, very consistent player for them. Trevor Linden, still there, of course. He was famous in the final for the amount of just injuries he was dealing with at that point, and still producing 84 games, 32 goals, 29 assists, 61 points. And as he proved during that playoff run, there was nothing that was going to keep him out of the lineup. McLean that year did not have a great regular season, 23, 26, and 3 with an 891 save percentage. But what we remember is the playoffs. Kirk McLean stepped up in the playoffs. Regular season we don't talk about. Also not talked about a lot, the fact that team had 85 points that year in 84 games played. So it was an 84-game schedule. They were second in the Pacific, a division which people debated about how strong that division was or wasn't at that point. But once Vancouver had their comeback victory over the Calgary Flames, where they'd been down 3-1 and they won it, in the final, once they won that game 5, it sort of entered our minds of maybe they can win this one at home in game 6, and then maybe they can win another at MSG. Because to that point, they'd won 2 out of 3 at MSG. So that era ends. We go to 2002, 2003 before the Canucks are really contenders again. And this is a year I talk a lot about. This was the one that kind of broke my heart a bit in that the team had a 3-1 series lead against the Wild. And if they knocked out Minnesota, who knows, right? They end up losing that series in 7 games against the Minnesota Wild. But Naslund led them in scoring. This is the height of the West Coast Express era. 82 games, 48 goals, 56 assists, 104 points. This is during the dead puck era where nobody's getting goals, so Naslund is remarkably at 100 points, almost 50 goals that year. Bertuzzi, 82 games, 46 goals, 51 assists, 97 points. Easily the best year of Todd Bertuzzi's career. Morrison, 82 games, 25 goals, 46 assists, 71 points. Excellent first-line center. The one question that was out there when it came to Morrison as well as Ronning during their eras was, were they really first-line centers, or would they have been more suited as a second-line center on a really good contending team? And that true first-line center, did the Canucks have that? So that was a question at the time. It's a question that has been around the team for quite some time. I don't feel like we have that problem now, but we have in the past. Cloutier. We're not to Cloutier yet. I want to talk about Jovanovski first. 67 games, 6 goals, 40 assists, 46 points. Jovanovski, to that point, was the best defenseman I think that ever wore a Vancouver Canucks jersey. There's been some good ones, but to me, Jovanovski was the best of the bunch. Cloutier, 33, 16, and 7 record, 908 save percentage, and I can still remember great save Cloutier. And honestly, Cloutier was remembered for the meltdowns in the playoffs. A lot of the time they had those meltdowns in the playoffs. He was fighting through an injury, which, again, we've talked about players playing through injuries. Now sometimes it hurts the team, and it felt like it was hurting the team with Cloutier. Although there was a lot of questions, too, about why they kept starting him when he didn't look like he was 100% good to go. They had 104 points that year, second in the Northwest Division. So what's interesting is they were never in the same division twice. 2010, 2011, they were first overall in the NHL, so I didn't worry about the record. Daniel Sedin led them in scoring that year. 82 games, 41 goals, 63 assists, 104 points. Henrik Sedin second. 82 games, 19 goals, 75 assists, 94 points. And, of course, they lost in the final in 7 against the Bruins. So lost in 6, 7, 7, 7. Sometimes I don't like game 7s. Ryan Kessler was in fine form that year. 82 games, 41 goals, 32 assists, 73 points. And as any Canuck fan will tell you, one of the best teams that didn't win the Stanley Cup. There are Canuck fans who believe it's the best team that never won a Stanley Cup in terms of roster. And yeah, Kessler was one of the best two-way forwards in the game. And I wanted to have Ehrhoff on the board. 79 games, 14 goals, 36 assists, 50 points. In that realm of what might have happened if Ehrhoff signing in Buffalo was a mistake for Buffalo, it was a mistake for Ehrhoff. If Ehrhoff had stayed in Vancouver, who knows what might have happened. The Canucks didn't really replace his production on the blue line, and he didn't produce elsewhere after he left Vancouver, so who knows. Luongo, of course, the big storyline there, 38, 15, and 7 during the regular season with a .928 save percentage. And, of course, Luongo's meltdowns in the playoffs talked about a lot. What doesn't get talked about as much is the games he played really well. But, of course, when you're paid that much, when you play really well, the expectation is you're going to do that anyways, so nobody says anything. But the moment that you don't necessarily have a great game, I've talked about that before, too. How the Canucks defense, when it melted down during that era, it was scary. A lot of shots from the slot, a lot of shots from in close that I don't know if any goalie could have stopped. But anyways, from then until now, it's been kind of quiet on the West Coast when it comes to Canuck teams that could be contenders. And it feels like this year's roster is something special, and you can make an all-star argument for any of these players. Starting with JT Miller, 42 games, 19 goals, 39 assists, 58 points. Pettersson, 42 games, 22 goals, 35 assists, 57 points. All-star arguments there. As well as Quinn Hughes, 42 games, 11 goals, 40 assists for 51 points. And Quinn Hughes has been absolutely remarkable. And he is now the best defenseman I think this team's ever had. Brock Besser, 42 games, 27 goals, 19 assists, 46 points. If I had told you during the summer I think Brock's going to score 50 this year, people would have rightfully said, you're insane. Because the argument has always been Besser's never had a 30-goal season. Well, he has 27, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say he gets at least 3 goals before the season's out and hits that 30-goal mark. But Hronek has turned out to be really good, too. 42 games, 3 goals, 33 assists, 36 points. He was good in Detroit. He's been better in Vancouver. And in net, of course, you have Demko, 21-8-1, .916 save percentage. Every time I look at this save percentage, I feel like, shouldn't that be a .926? Like, I thought of that the other day. Like, I had Demko's save percentage on the board, and I thought, should be .926. Like, it feels like he's playing so well, that .916 just feels like a lie. So, I understand the excitement locally, and it does feel like when you look at these rosters, and I just wanted to focus on the star players, the top guys, it feels like this core could be the best core they've had. And this core could also be built for a playoff run in a way that the other teams weren't. So going back here, 91, 92, this was the first year Vancouver was good, and there was some inexperience in this lineup as well, and I felt like the Oilers took advantage of that. The Oilers only 2 years removed from their last Stanley Cup at that point. 94, they did everything they could. There was a lot of heart with that team. I don't know if they were necessarily the best team in the West. That's the record of 85 points in 84 games, but big games, they all came together, and it was a different hero every night, it seemed. 2002, 2003, goaltending let them down. 2003, I think that was the year the Canucks could have won the Stanley Cup. 92 was the first year I felt like they could have. 2003 was the next. 2011, I really believed during the Luongo era they were going to win a Stanley Cup. People talk about how the Bruins kind of took them apart. I honestly think that the Game 7 loss was psychological as much as anything else. I don't know that it was necessarily physical. I think Boston mentally got in their heads. I think Games 3, 4, and 6, being as lopsided as they were, I felt like, maybe psychologically that had an impact on the Canucks. In Game 7, they just didn't have it. This team feels different. I don't know how else to put it. This team, it feels different. And I don't talk about it in videos because, honestly, I am so superstitious, I do not want to jinx it. The moment that I stand here and go, on the bandwagon, and then the Canucks do this, it'll be a stupid hockey guy. Look at that. Says something nice. And there you go. It's just like for me with Boston this year. They've had a remarkable run. Their points totals are good without Bergeron and Krejci, but again, if I stand here and I crow about it, then it doesn't it goes against my stance that I need to not be that cheerleader and just to bring it across as objectively as possible. But it's hard not to be excited about a team that's been playing this well, that has this many guys who and I don't think they've revealed the all-star selections yet. We'll see how many of them end up making it, but I think the argument could be made this year's special in Vancouver. And the one thing with that, and again, it's just, this is always me kind of like doing a psychological evaluation of myself, like, hey, settle down. Remember 92, remember 2011, remember 94. Just wait, just relax. It's a long season, and just pace yourself out. So that's what I do a lot of the time. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are the Vancouver Canucks right now, are they putting out a lineup that is the best they've ever had? And again, remembering these eras, I don't think they've ever had depth like this. I can't remember them rolling 4 lines where all 4 lines are productive. I can't remember them having a blue line that all of a sudden looks this good from top to bottom. And their goaltending. They've got Demko as the starter. DeSmith as the backup's been excellent. And so I'm kind of anxious to see what they're going to do between now and the deadline. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And yeah, so I'll leave the question up to you guys. Is it the best Canucks roster they've ever had? Is that what we're looking at? Or do you think that they're going to fall off in the second half of the season? Do you think in the playoffs, well, they're gonna run into a wall? It's gonna be Vegas, and they're gonna lose to Vegas. I do, looking at the teams in the West, I do feel like Vancouver against Vegas. I think that's a good matchup for the Canucks. Goaltending wise, depth wise, I think they're a little bit better than Vegas. I'm not overly concerned with LA either. Edmonton would make me very nervous in the playoffs just because of the playoff history between Edmonton and Vancouver. Being that I don't think Vancouver's ever beaten Edmonton in the playoffs. In fact, I'm pretty sure they haven't. So that's the one concern I would have, but man, would that be an entertaining series. That is a series, too, that I feel like if that comes to pass in the new year, that the view counts for those videos would be absolutely insane, and rightfully so. But again, let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I'm in here because my set is unusable today and will likely be unusable tomorrow as well. But hey, I can still make videos and I can still upload them and let you find people on the internet. Talk to me about how you feel about all of this. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.